When we talk about health, most people think of diet, exercise, or even stress management, but very few pause to consider how they breathe. Yet, the way you breathe can quietly shape your oral health in profound ways. Mouth breathing, something that often seems harmless or simply a habit, is in fact a hidden disruptor of dental wellness. And what makes it so insidious is that its damage accumulates silently, showing itself only after years of neglect. Think about saliva for a moment. We often overlook it, but saliva is one of the body's most powerful defenders. It washes away bacteria, neutralizes acids, and maintains a balanced environment in the mouth. When you breathe through your mouth, you dry up this essential defense system. Without enough saliva, the natural cleansing cycle of the mouth breaks down. Suddenly, bacteria multiply freely, acids erode enamel faster, and cavities begin to form. A mouth that should be self-cleaning becomes a breeding ground for disease. The consequences don't stop with cavities. Chronic dryness from mouth breathing makes the gums more susceptible to infection. Gum disease begins quietly with slight bleeding or swelling, but over time it eats away at the foundation of the teeth. Once gum health deteriorates, it's incredibly difficult to reverse. Left unchecked, this leads not just to tooth loss, but to systemic inflammation that radiates through the entire body. What starts as a simple habit of breathing the wrong way at night can ripple into a much larger health crisis. Bad breath is another direct outcome, and while that may seem cosmetic, it has real psychological weight. Imagine waking each day worried about whether people notice your breath. That kind of self-consciousness chips away at confidence and even affects how freely we interact with others. When the root cause is mouth breathing, no amount of mints or mouthwash can solve it, because the environment inside the mouth remains chronically dry and imbalanced. Then there's the structural toll. Over time, the constant flow of air through the mouth alters the position of the tongue. Instead of resting gently against the roof of the mouth, guiding the palate to widen naturally, the tongue drops to the floor of the mouth. This subtle shift can change the shape of the jaw and teeth alignment. Crooked teeth, a narrow arch, even changes in how the face looks. All of these can stem from something as basic as how we breathe. It's astonishing to realize that a habit most people never question can literally reshape the architecture of the face. The irony is that many people only discover the problem when it's too late. A dentist may point out gum recession, cavities in unusual places, or signs of chronic dryness. Parents may notice their child's crowded teeth or elongated facial structure. Adults may seek treatment for gum disease or tooth loss without ever being told the deeper cause. The surface problems become the focus, while the underlying driver, mouth breathing, remains unaddressed. This is where awareness becomes the most powerful form of prevention. Understanding that your oral health depends not just on brushing, flossing, and dental visits, but on something as simple as how you breathe, changes the game entirely. When you choose to breathe through your nose, you allow your saliva to do its work. You keep bacteria in check, you protect your gums, and you maintain the natural balance that preserves your teeth for a lifetime. What fascinates me is how something so fundamental connects the physical and the psychological. The health of our mouths shapes how we eat, how we speak, how we smile. These are not trivial matters. They define how we present ourselves to the world and how we feel in social spaces. If a habit as unconscious as mouth breathing can rob us of that freedom, then correcting it is not just about preventing disease. It's about reclaiming self-expression and confidence. So the next time you catch yourself or your child sleeping with the mouth open or feeling constantly dry in the mouth during the day, don't dismiss it. It's more than just a quirk. It's a signal, a warning that the most basic of human functions is being disrupted. And as with so many aspects of health, the earlier you intervene, the easier it is to protect yourself from a lifetime of complications. Every breath you take is either working for your health or against it. And in the case of oral health, breathing through the nose is the body's design for balance and protection. To neglect this truth is to invite problems that could have been prevented with a single conscious choice. If you want a thought to carry with you, let it be this: The simple act of closing your mouth and breathing through your nose may be one of the most powerful dental treatments you'll ever give yourself. No tools, no medicine, just awareness. That awareness is where true prevention begins. When we think of breathing, the mind often jumps to oxygen. We breathe to deliver oxygen to our cells. That's the simple biology most of us were taught in school. But the story is far deeper, especially when we compare nose breathing to mouth breathing. Breathing is not just about oxygen coming in. It's also about carbon dioxide being regulated, nitric oxide being produced, and the rhythm of airflow being balanced in ways that affect every organ, including the brain. When the mouth replaces the nose in this delicate process, we begin to see a cascade of consequences that extend far beyond oral health. The nose is not simply a hole in the face. It is an extraordinary filtration and regulation system. Each breath through the nose is warmed, humidified, and filtered before it reaches the lungs. Microscopic hairs and mucous membranes capture dust, allergens, and pathogens, serving as the body's first line of defense. Nitric oxide, a gas produced in the nasal passages, expands blood vessels and enhances oxygen delivery throughout the body. Mouth breathing bypasses all of this. Air floods in raw, dry, unfiltered, and devoid of nitric oxide. Over time, this sets the stage for inflammation, vulnerability to infection, and a kind of silent stress on the cardiovascular system. But here's where it becomes even more fascinating. Mouth breathing shifts the very chemistry of the body. When we breathe rapidly or shallowly through the mouth, we lose more carbon dioxide than we should. That may sound like a good thing, but in truth, carbon dioxide is not simply a waste gas. It plays a critical role in helping oxygen release from hemoglobin into the tissues. When carbon dioxide levels drop too low, oxygen actually clings to hemoglobin more tightly. This means that although oxygen is circulating, it is not being delivered efficiently to the brain, muscles, and organs. Imagine that you could be taking in more breaths through the mouth and still starving your cells of oxygen. This imbalance is one reason why chronic mouth breathers often complain of fatigue, foggy thinking, or difficulty concentrating. The brain, deprived of steady oxygen delivery, begins to function below its potential. Sleep becomes fragmented, daytime energy dips. Over the years, this oxygen disruption can accelerate cellular aging, making people more vulnerable to conditions like hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and even cognitive decline. Something as simple as the path of air, nose versus mouth, reshapes the way oxygen fuels life itself. Sleep is where this dynamic shows its most damaging face. During the night, when the body is meant to heal, regulate hormones, and restore the brain, mouth breathing derails the process. The airway collapses more easily, leading to snoring and, in many cases, sleep apnea. Apnea literally means without breath. The oxygen dips and surges that accompany this condition put enormous strain on the heart, increase blood pressure, and disrupt the deep stages of sleep that are essential for memory and learning. The result is a body and mind that never fully recover. And yet, countless individuals live with these patterns for years, unaware that the simple act of mouth breathing is at the root. On a psychological level, this becomes even more compelling. When your oxygen regulation is compromised, you don't just feel tired. You feel more anxious, more irritable, more prone to stress. The body, in essence, is living in a constant state of subtle suffocation. And when the brain perceives suffocation, it triggers alarm signals throughout the nervous system. This is why many mouth breathers develop a baseline of restlessness or nervous energy. They are not just dealing with a bad habit. They are fighting against the very biology of oxygen delivery. There is also a philosophical layer to this that I think is important to highlight. Breathing through the nose is the body's natural design. It is a rhythm of life that harmonizes with our evolutionary biology. To breathe through the mouth is to shortcut that design, to live out of alignment with the way the body was meant to function. And whenever we live out of alignment, whether in diet, movement, or even something as fundamental as breathing, the cost is cumulative. Nature always extracts a price when we deviate from its wisdom. What I find remarkable is how quickly the body can begin to recover once this awareness is applied. People who retrain themselves to breathe through the nose report clearer thinking, better sleep, reduced anxiety, and more consistent energy. Their cardiovascular systems thank them. Their immune systems strengthen. Their nights become restorative rather than fragmented. And all of this comes without medication, without elaborate intervention, just a return to the way nature designed us to breathe. So the question becomes, if something as small as shifting the path of air from the mouth back to the nose can change oxygen delivery, sleep, energy, and long-term health, why would we allow ourselves to ignore it? The truth is that health often lies not in the dramatic, but in the subtle. The habits we overlook are the ones that define the quality of our lives, and mouth breathing, as ordinary as it seems, is one of those hidden habits that erodes vitality quietly year after year. If you remember nothing else, remember this: every breath is either medicine or a toxin, depending on the path it takes. Choose the path that nourishes rather than depletes. Choose the nose. Your body, your mind, and your future will feel the difference. When we talk about mouth breathing, it's easy to focus on the obvious: the dry mouth, the bad breath, the restless sleep. But what often slips under the radar is the profound effect it has on the very structure of the face and the alignment of the teeth. This isn't just about appearance. It's about how function and form are inseparably tied together in the human body. And when one is disrupted, the other follows. The human face is a masterpiece of balance. The nose, the jaw, the tongue, the palate, all of these features are designed to work in harmony. In childhood, the way we breathe directs how these structures grow. When a child breathes through the nose, the tongue naturally rests on the roof of the mouth, creating gentle pressure that encourages the palate to widen, the jaw to develop properly, and the teeth to find their rightful alignment. But when mouth breathing takes over, this natural posture collapses. The tongue falls away from the palate, the jaw narrows, the teeth crowd, and the entire shape of the face begins to shift. This is why orthodontists are now paying more attention to breathing patterns. Crooked teeth aren't simply the result of genetics. They are often the physical imprint of dysfunctional breathing. A child who breathes through the mouth night after night is unknowingly molding their face into a structure that is less efficient, less balanced, and more prone to health issues down the line. By the time they are adults, the damage is harder to correct, but the pattern persists. Even adults who develop normal jaw growth can experience changes in posture, bite, and alignment if mouth breathing becomes chronic. What's remarkable is how directly this connects function and aesthetics. A narrow jaw or receding chin, often seen in chronic mouth breathers, doesn't just alter appearance, it restricts the airway. That restricted airway makes it even harder to breathe through the nose, perpetuating the cycle. And so a structural shift that began as a habit becomes a lifelong challenge. We cannot overlook the psychological and emotional impact of this. A young person growing up with crowded teeth or altered facial development may struggle with self-esteem, which shapes how they engage with the world. But beyond confidence, their biology is working against them. They may experience more frequent dental problems, higher risk of sleep, disordered breathing, or even speech difficulties. And all of this traces back, in many cases, to something as simple as the way air was habitually drawn into the body. From a philosophical lens, this reminds us that the body is always listening to our habits. Every small, repeated action carves a message into our physiology. Breath by breath, we are sculpting not only our health, but even our outward form. That's a humbling thought, that something as automatic as how we breathe can literally reshape the architecture of our face. It forces us to recognize the immense power of consistency, whether for health or for harm. And yet, the story doesn't have to be one of inevitability. The body, especially when young, is highly adaptable. Parents who notice their children breathing through the mouth can intervene early. Simple awareness, combined with medical guidance when needed, can redirect growth and prevent years of struggle. Even for adults, learning to restore nasal breathing improves tongue posture, jaw stability, and long-term oral health. The changes may not be as dramatic as in childhood, but they are real, and they ripple through every system in the body: Think of the face as the front door of the body. If that doorway is narrow, misaligned, or unstable, everything that passes through it is compromised. Mouth breathing does exactly that. It reshapes the doorway and in turn compromises everything that depends on an oxygen intake, airway function, even confidence in one's own appearance. So the challenge is simple but profound. Pay attention to the way you breathe. If you are a parent, observe your children's habits. If you are an adult, notice whether your mouth is open at night or during the day. These small observations can be the first step to protecting not only the health of your body, but the integrity of your facial structure. In the end, we must accept that beauty and health are not separate. They are reflections of the same underlying balance. A well-developed jaw, aligned teeth, and an open airway are signs of proper function. Mouth breathing erodes that balance silently, changing faces and lives in ways most people never imagine. If you take nothing else from this, remember this truth: every breath you take is shaping you. It is not only fueling your body, it is sculpting your form. So choose the breath that strengthens, not the one that diminishes. Choose the nose and let your body grow into its fullest design. One of the most alarming consequences of mouth breathing lies in its silent assault on sleep. We often think of sleep as a passive state, a time when the body simply powers down. But in truth, sleep is one of the most active and restorative processes in human biology. It is the stage where memory is consolidated, hormones are balanced, tissues are repaired, and the immune system is strengthened. Yet all of this depends on a steady, unbroken flow of oxygen. When mouth breathing takes over, that delicate rhythm is disrupted, and the consequences ripple through every system of the body. Think about it this way: when you breathe through your nose, the air is filtered, warmed, humidified, and slowed down before it reaches the lungs. That slower, richer stream of oxygen sets the stage for deeper, more restorative sleep. Mouth breathing, on the other hand, delivers cold, unfiltered air at a higher velocity. It dries out the airway, irritates tissues, and most dangerously, destabilizes breathing during the night. This is why mouth breathers are far more likely to snore, gasp, or even experience full-blown sleep apnea, episodes where the airway collapses, cutting off oxygen repeatedly. Now, consider what happens when this cycle repeats itself night after night. Instead of waking up refreshed, the individual wakes up foggy, irritable, and depleted. Their body has spent the night fighting for air rather than sinking into the deep stages of restorative rest. This is more than inconvenience. Over time, poor sleep quality translates into heightened risk for high blood pressure, heart disease, insulin resistance, and even memory decline. What begins with an open mouth at night can end with a cascade of health problems that follow a person for decades. The psychological dimension here is just as compelling. Sleep is not only about physical restoration, it is about emotional regulation. The brain's ability to process stress, stabilize mood, and maintain resilience is tied directly to the quality of rest it receives. When breathing dysfunction interrupts that process, people become more vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and irritability. How many relationships have been strained? How many careers disrupted because of an unseen culprit? The body's inability to breathe correctly while asleep. It is staggering when you reflect on it. And here is where the philosophical depth enters. Sleep is supposed to be the great equalizer. No matter who you are, what your struggles may be, the promise of night is that your body will heal, reset, and begin again. Mouth breathing robs people of that promise. It denies them access to the full gift of restoration. That is why this issue is so much larger than snoring or morning dryness. It touches the very core of human vitality. What's also remarkable is that many people don't even know it's happening. They may live for years unaware that their mouth falls open at night, that their oxygen levels drop, that their heart races to compensate. They assume that fatigue is just part of getting older, or that stress is to blame for their brain fog. But beneath those complaints lies a very simple truth. The body is suffocating in small doses, night after night. The hopeful side of this story is that awareness is transformative. Small interventions, taping the mouth gently at night to encourage nasal breathing, Correcting nasal obstructions or working with specialists in sleep medicine can radically change a person's quality of life. Children who are corrected early often avoid a lifetime of dental and airway complications. Adults who retrain their breathing reclaim energy, clarity, and health they thought were lost forever. So when we speak of mouth breathing, it's not about scaring people with statistics or shaming them for habits they may not even notice. It's about awakening them to the profound connection between something as simple as breath and something as fundamental as life itself. Because when we fix the way we breathe, we don't just improve the mechanics of the body. We restore the soul's relationship with rest, with vitality, with presence. If you take one reflection from this, let it be this: sleep is sacred. It is the invisible thread that ties together your body, your mind, and your spirit. Mouth breathing unravels that thread quietly but relentlessly. The choice to breathe through the nose is not a small adjustment. It is a declaration that you are ready to protect your energy, your health, and your future. So tonight, as you lay your head down, remember this simple truth: the way you breathe as you sleep will shape the way you live when you wake.